Hello, everyone, and welcome to Playwright, a podcast about creating and sharing new ways to play. My name is Ryan. You can call me H.
And my name is Ryan Quintal. You can call me Q.
And if I have my calendar correct, this is our Christmas episode. Not because it falls around Christmas, but because we like to keep the spirit of Christmas alive in our heart all year round. We're conveniently close to Christmas, but no cigar just yet.
I have, as we record the show in advance, you might be unsurprised to find me having a not so Christmassy pitch this week, but rather a Thanksgiving-y type of pitch. But I won't spoil it too much for you. But yeah, holiday season. What are you wishing for Christmas?
Oh, well, at this point, I'm wishing for a big turkey dinner, lots of pilgrims, lots of Native Americans. I'm really getting in the spirit of the holiday.
Yeah. Happy Native Peoples Day. That's even going further back, right? It's kind of weird recording in advance because I feel like I should be in a jolly mood come our Christmas episode, but you'll just have to take my normal baseline
Instead,
level of
we're in the
jolliness.
terrible depression of Thanksgiving.
Yeah, it's the food coma that is Thanksgiving for sure.
All right, well, let's go ahead and pitch some video games then. I believe that you're going first today.
My pitch for you this week is a unsurprising, potentially battle royale-esque pitch where you are set inside of different sorts of department stores on some day that is a huge sales day. Maybe we call it Black Friday, or maybe we call it Cyber Monday, whatever is the, we can even make up a holiday name for it, but it's a super sales. The stores are packed and you are dropped into the store, you enter into the store and you actually have to murder your other shoppers in order to compete to buy the best stuff.
Wow, all right. Let's go ahead and start the clock. So I guess we've never really made a ruling on whether you have to bring anything original to the pitch or whether you can just turn on the TV and watch what's happening in America and just regurgitate it one for one. But we'll let it slide this one time.
Well, I'm thinking that there could be, if we take this into maybe a Hitman-esque direction or a Spy Party-like direction where you can kind of disguise yourselves as salespeople, or maybe you are not entering in to buy the best stuff, but rather you are trying to get rid of your competitors amongst a fray of innocent civilians who are running around and shopping, and you can't actually hurt them. If you hurt them, you lose some sort of points.
Have you ever wanted to,
yes,
at the grocery store, steal things out of other people's carts?
Oh, man. You know what? I've never actually had that urge, but I have a huge paranoia that someone else is going to do it to me. So obviously the thought is jangling around in there somewhere.
I mean, you like supervise your cart like it's a drink at a bar that you don't want to get spiked or something like that. It's like, what are people going to do? Put a bunch of Fruity Pebbles in your cart? What's the worst that could happen?
If you're taking this in this direction, which I think is interesting, you are, instead of trying to kill everybody, you are trying to shop, but you're only allowed to shop out of other people's carriages. So you actually have to maybe follow around couples and families in the store and hear the kid being like, oh, I want to check out the Frozen DVD or whatever. And you okay, making note of that. I have to buy that later. So if I can locate that family, in a couple minutes in the store, they'll probably have that in their cart. So you're listening to all these families sort of bicker and complain and haggle about. I think it's ripe for a lot of funny ambient dialogue about consumerism.
So if you're out there stealing carts and stuff like that, do you get bonus points or do you get a deduction if you steal a child in the cart?
Oh, I wasn't even thinking about stealing the whole cart, but rather doing a almost like State of Decay, rummage through a cart and try not to get caught and then get one item from it. But I love the idea of, somebody's kid in the cart and can you push it through the metal detectors or something? I guess pushing it through the metal detectors is the equivalent of banking it or something. It's starting to feel like a family double dare kind of mini game.
What are those old game shows where you would have like 10 minutes in a store and just like anything you could put in your cart, you would get to take home.
Yeah, I feel like there were a lot of shows that followed that format, especially on the Nickelodeon network. Yeah. I remember one of the shows, like it may have been Wild and Crazy Kids, where you like the end game is you get like 5 minutes in Toys R Us where you have to cap, like they also gave you like a spending cap, right? Because they're like 5 minutes or $500. But the kids that like took too long getting the Super Soaker only get a Super Soaker, and that's the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be a lot of fun to just like, I mean, there's something appealing about just kind of like pulling your cart up to a shelf and just scooping everything in that shelf into the cart and just amassing the greatest value of stuff. Maybe there's maybe low value items, things that cost like $1 or $2, like bags of candy, are super easy to scoop in there. But then the more expensive stuff, the stuff that's really going to like rack up the high scores, the stereos and stuff like that, are they take a little bit more finagling to get in there. They're a little bit bigger, and so they have more of a chance of bouncing out of the cart.
Wow, if you just did that sort of mini game where people have, like, you're trying to hit a certain amount of money, right? So you could have modes where you're trying to hit a certain amount of money. So you go and try and find the right combination of stuff. Say you can't duplicate any item, but you have to get as close to some amount as you can, and that's a mini game. And then another mini game is, like you said, you just go around and you fill up your cart, and once your cart is full, you drive it across the finish line. And maybe there's some way to like take things out of your cart in a very quick inventory management like thing, but some people are going to go for like, can I get this TV in the cart? And other people are going to try and do the like, yeah, well, you thought the action was at the TV, but it was really 50 copies of this box set DVD that together is worth more than the TV. But I've got, a cart full of ridiculous shit.
Yeah, maybe, these things take up a certain amount of space. And so you're trying to maximize time, space. It's like an inventory management thing like you would get in a Resident Evil game.
Oh yeah, where you're flipping it all around and stuff.
Yeah, and it's all very physicsy, and so anything that bounces out and touches the ground is like off limits now.
Yeah, stack it sort of precariously, and like you also have to, there's a time limit as well, so you don't want to like have to push the cart too fast or anything, because then you could design all sorts of like shopping mall stores with multiple levels and escalators, and those escalators that kind of grab your cart. And so you could optimize, like, I could spend a bunch of time getting to the top floor, but I know the top floor is going to have like very expensive stuff.
I was going to say you can choose the size of your cart, but there would really be no reason to not have the largest cart. Maybe you have to work up to it. Maybe you only get a small cart, and then you have to steal a bigger cart from one of the shoppers that's already in the place.
Oh yeah, it would also be interesting if you could kind of do the like parking lot shopping cart daisy chaining, like somehow get two carts like connected to each other.
Yeah, that'd be pretty good. Yeah, I think this could be a lot of fun. Let's see.
What other things can we do about shopping?
I think if things are on a big row of shelves, if you're not careful with putting something in your cart, then it could kind of rattle the whole shelf, and all sorts of things could fall over. Maybe they fall into your cart. Maybe they just fall into the ground. Maybe the things that fall onto the ground become obstacles that you kind of have to steer around. They don't stop being physics objects at that point, and they have the possibility of disrupting the things you've already taken.
I think like when I'm thinking about the movement and the mechanics of this game, I remember, was it earlier this year? I think it was, when Red Dead was out and happening. I was astounded at the horrible inefficiency of shopping by actually looking at things on shelves. I was the magazine guy all the way in that game, but I loved that it was there, and I can imagine this being a third person like thing where you're kind of inexactly kind of moving your cursor over things, positioning it, and trying to, as best you can, grab these products. And maybe the products kind of cling to your hand like an Octodad, and you just have to shake them into the cart or something. So just like, I think anytime you can make it feel very panicky to be running around grabbing these items is probably better.
I'd like to imagine that whenever you're ordering from the catalog in Red Dead, the store owner has to back order everything. And so it's like, I have one of those out on the shelf, but if you really want me to order it from my supplier, I guess I can do that.
Right. Or he's annoyingly walking out, like he's leaving behind the counter while you're browsing the catalog, and he's just getting it on the shelf. He's like, okay, what is it again? This thing, it's over here. So
allow me to do this for you.
So have we walked totally away from combat in this scenario, or is combat something that's still interesting to us?
I mean, there could be a certain level of vehicular combat. Of course, that has the possibility of disrupting the items in your cart as well, but maybe you can run over people and take some of the stuff that they have. Maybe people are trying to bash into your cart and knock some of the stuff out of it.
Or maybe you could take your cart, or even just like pick up products and like just throw them. And you can throw them to potentially hit and stun people, but you could also throw like a small but substantial thing like into a television to just straight up smash the screen, and now somebody has to go back and get a new screen.
To like keep it from giving the opponent points, so that
exactly.
it becomes like, worthless at that point.
Destroy the value of items in their cart.
Yeah. All right, let's stop the clock and let's come up with a name.
Oh man. I almost want to evoke an original Xbox game here and go for Retail Frenzy.
Like Fusion Frenzy?
Yeah, but it's not exactly a rhyme. I just love the word frenzy being added to it.
It's kind of nice though. I think that sounds like a good indie game title. Retail Frenzy. Let's go with that. Let's wrap that one up and let's move on to my pitch. Today's pitch was inspired by one of the recent games on Steam, which is called Lumberjack's Dynasty, which is such an evocative name.
Wow!
I got very curious. It seems to just be like a lumberjack simulator type of game, but I love that they kind of assert that this lumberjack has a dynasty to his name, and it made me think about like what would Lumberjack's Dynasty Warriors be like. Yeah. So how about a game where you play as a fantasy anime lumberjack running into the forest with 2 chainsaws or any assortment of chainsaw-based weaponry.
And spinning.
Yeah. Performing stylish moves to cut down huge swaths of the forest at once. So maybe it's kind of similar to the last one. A little bit of chaos in there. So let's see where we can take that, and we're starting the clock.
This is great. Especially if you have like different combo moves and stuff to create like slashes that make sure that trees fall in a certain direction. There can be a little bit of a puzzly aspect to it where you're marking trees, and you know, a big part I feel like I say a big part, I haven't done the job, but I know the direction of which a tree falls is pretty important in that profession, and kind of designing those scenarios. So maybe there's a way to do that in a fast-paced action game.
Yeah. Of course, I mean, because the falling trees are very dangerous. There's a risk reward of the size of trees you choose to take down, or how dense the areas are that you choose to begin your logging expedition in. Maybe it's beneficial sometimes to take the less densely tree populated areas. Those serve less of a threat if you haven't gotten that good at dodging the falling trees yet.
What you've actually done is designed a game in the vein of Dynasty Warriors that actually has an excuse to have fog as thick and as close as it was in some of those early Dynasty Warriors games. What else? So lumberjacks are marking trees. Maybe there's also find your way through the woods or find your way back is not really a thing, because theoretically you'd see a path of your destruction.
Yeah, of course, the places where you've been before are kind of cleared out at this point, so there's less to gain from going back there, but you do have to take your logs back to a mill. Let's say you carry them all on your back, and you could potentially carry an infinite load or a very large load, but it just ends up making you very heavy and move very slowly.
So you can kind of load up, and then you're kind of literally lumbering back to the mill.
Yeah.
We should remember that word, lumbering, when it comes time to name this thing. So I like all that. I think one of the interesting parts about Dynasty Warriors in a level is that feeling of accomplishing some sub goal, and it kind of opens up a new gate, or it opens up a new area. So I wonder if there's like particular densities of trees, or there's different tree types that have to be cut down with different weapons, and you have to sort of power up first you start with axes, and like once you get up there, or you start off with like even just a machete, and once you get up there, you get the axe, and then the axe enables you to get through certain other densities of trees. So there's kind of a reason to go back maybe into areas, and you're like, no, I saw some, white oak back there that now I can cut through.
Yeah, that's true. You're kind of always upgrading your axes or your chainsaws. I'm very curious, with Gears of War sticking a chainsaw onto a gun, like what other types of creative weaponry can we attach chainsaws to? I was thinking like swinging it around at the end of a chain.
The chain saws.
Yeah, there we go.
Oh my God, there's got to be other stuff. I love a chainsaw crossbow thing, maybe, and you can actually launch a single chainsaw out.
Yeah, and maybe with a rope on the end of it so you can pull it back in.
Yeah, it's like that Lara Croft or the Batman kind of rope thing.
So you could like zip out to it then?
Oh, yeah. Because theoretically, because it's like the chain, you actually are like casting out the chain, and then the saw like spins it back on you.
There's those Bayonetta has chainsaw weapons, and if she attaches them to her shoes, then she can use them as skates to skate around and then like kick and slash things with her feet.
That works for me. I love if you can do the chainsaw brass knuckles, where like essentially the chains are like rotating around your hands, and you get some punch action in there.
It gets dangerous.
This guy's a master though.
Yeah, he has a whole dynasty. Like a dual-sided chainsaw, like a Darth Maul chainsaw.
Yeah, and I think it would be cool too if you can execute a high enough like combo count or something on a group of trees that the friction actually causes fire. And then that way you can do sort of controlled burns, and maybe like certain brush and stuff is so dense that the only way to get through it is really get your combo meter up as high as you can, try and sustain it up into reaching that point. And then you get the sort of like burn move, the burn swipe or something that lets you kind of...
Maybe it's like friction and heat that's accumulating within your chainsaw, and then you can choose to discharge it, and it shoots out like a bit of flame that's kind of, it depends on how much you've charged and saved to that point.
Yeah, that's perfect, because then you can do the full NFL blitz, like she's on fire, and have your character sort of fully powered up, and then you almost get that Sonic or Mario like star invincibility for a couple seconds. How do you take damage in this game? Like, how does it push back on you? Because I know eventually you can, even though it can be difficult, you can die in a Dynasty Warriors game.
Yeah, the trees are dangerous, of course, as they're falling. But what else could be a credible
as the trees
threat?
fall,
Obviously, forest fires. Maybe you're kind of put into sometimes like rescue scenarios where you have to get to somebody before they get crushed by a avalanche, or I don't know. Maybe there's different types of scenarios you have to do. Maybe it's all just like a time limit thing. You have like 1 5-minute workday, and you got to get out there and cut down as many trees as you can.
You could also do stuff where the larger the tree, the more you sort of can get your combo multiplier up. So you might find yourself like trying to tackle one large tree and then sustain the combo by going through a bunch of smaller trees until you can find that next larger tree. And so you almost find yourself like drawing these diagonal lines or these intricate patterns in order to kind of move from thing to thing, because the person, maybe the person ends up chained up or whatever. They're tied to a tree some way, but the lock that's on them, I'm thinking full like Japanese action game, Total Fantasy here. The lock that's on them is like a 65. So you got to get your combo meter up to 65 in this challenge in order to slice right through that lock.
Yeah, like the hippies that have tied themselves to the trees and stuff like that.
Yeah, they're stopping the construction equipment. We must conquer
this
land.
In this one, then. There's room for kind of continual improvements and new types of weaponry and stuff that you can craft using the wood that you've gathered throughout the game. That would provide kind of a nice way forward. Maybe there's some sort of like a randomized unlocks like you would get in an Earth Defense Force, where you could get some really, powerful, nice stuff just kind of randomly? What other interesting wrinkles can we bring to this?
If we're thinking about the combo meter to the XP, all of that sort of thing, I wonder if there's, if you have levels where you're essentially clearing stuff out for a vehicle that's behind you. So you kind of almost design chase levels in that way where they're always trying to move forward and you're trying not to be flattened by the...
It's kind of like Blast Corps then.
My God, I haven't had thought about Blast Corps in a while. Yeah, I guess so. Because you'd potentially have dynamite too, right?
All the tools of logging, I'm not that familiar, but I'm sure they have some pretty dangerous stuff.
I think doing dynamite or doing those low-level explosives to sort of splinter trees is a good... So if you add tools to the arsenal, I think you can find all those different tools are different ways to extend the combo. Like, I know that the combo meter is going to deplete between this tree and the next tree, but I can get my combo up, strap dynamite to it, and then halfway through walking, that tree will fire and my combo can be extended.
I like that. We're out of time. Let's close that one and come up with a name. So, we went into this with Lumberjack's Dynasty Warriors, which I still feel is pretty descriptive.
Lumberjack's Dynasty Warriors. Sure. Dynasty Lumberjacks is also pretty good. I just feel like Duck Dynasty has kind of ruined the whole Dynasty name.
Yeah, I guess if it's in the middle, it's not quite as egregious.
Yeah, we both agree that Duck Dynasty is the worst Dynasty Warriors game, right?
Duck Dynasty Warriors, man. That would probably be worth exploring at some point in the future.
Yeah. Well, there goes my pitch at the end of the show. Oh, my God.
All right. Let's go to our community now. Let's read one that was submitted to our website at playwrightcast.com/pitch. From Robert Lee, who says, "Hi Ryans, I recently finished the wonderful Outer Wilds after becoming completely obsessed with it. I also noticed while watching trailers from the most recent E3 that there are quite a few games using the time loop mechanic. What about a game that uses that time loop, but every time the game loops back to the beginning, you have to play a different character? Keep up the great work." Ooh, I like that. All right, we're starting the clock. So traditionally, time loops are used in a way with whether you're playing Majora's Mask or Hitman or whatever, as a way of giving you insight as to like what's going to happen and knowing where to position yourself, because you start off with the same kind of basic starting equipment. You know what you need to complete the challenge. You know where to be. You know how to get there.
Yeah,
I like this extra complicating factor of being a different person, coming at it from a different perspective every time. Maybe it's like a Doctor Who type thing where every time you loop back, you have to kind of like possess another character who was in the scene, which is also kind of a way of adding, even though I don't typically like them, a lives system, because once everybody in that particular scene in history that you are looking at is no longer there, then you can't go back anymore.
What a pleasant way of saying dead, no longer there.
Well, they're not dead if you're going back to the beginning and then they just right. Stuff that happened later chronologically.
One of the things I like about the Outer Wilds is the idea of some persistence. And so maybe there's something to waking up again and realizing you are an important vendor or an NPC who gives a detail in a quest. And so what you're trying to do is spend those persons' loops, positioning them so that they will be in a valuable place on the next playthrough. So
okay,
you're trying to like kind of set it up. You're like, I know to finish this thing and to stop the loop, I need to get this equipment from this person and have this conversation with that person. But they start off very far apart from each other. So when you realize you're inhabiting them, it lets you kind of set them up to move into a position and figure out how to chain them all together to finish the puzzle.
Yeah. I guess the only complicating thing is that like if characters that you had previously played as are taken out of the equation, then like you couldn't really position them, but we can always just kind of excise that one portion of it. So what is the limiting factor, Like what once you kind of observe things, what makes it, I guess, what's the challenge the next time around?
I guess in this scenario, any person that I possess must be capable of beating the game, right?
Yeah, potentially. Maybe there are some things you kind of have to set in motion. I don't want somebody necessarily stumbling upon the solution the first time through, just because that takes away from engaging with the most interesting aspect of the game.
Maybe during the loop sequence, the thing that you can do is transfer your consciousness only into a person who's within your proximity.
Okay.
You kind of find yourself trying to make sure that loops end around someone who is going to have a valuable skill for you to kind of get through the next loop. And maybe there are certain things in the loop, like Outer Wilds, that do progress, that do get remembered. Some progress is stamped, but the person that I need to be to get through this next puzzle is really somebody with this particular type of skill. So I'm going to spend my next run just making sure I locate that person and I'm near them when the end comes or what have you.
So I guess the puzzle can't just be like getting somewhere then, because, because then like dying and resetting as somebody who's already closer to that goal would be kind of like a checkpoint. You want to experience the same space from multiple perspectives. That's what makes it interesting.
Yeah. Now, are you imagining this is sort of interplanetary, or can this be almost like a Disco Elysium in scope, like a city block or something?
Yeah, I was thinking more, like Groundhog Day, where it's just this town and all of these interlocking relationships. I'm interested in, like every character potentially has a story of their own. And as you're coming back as different characters, getting to see things from their perspective, it's kind of like a Rashomon type thing, where you're understanding things about a character by inhabiting them for a little bit.
Yeah, that's interesting. So and I think if you did have that sort of depth of each character having their own different personality traits, maybe that's what allows you to unlock different aspects of it. Like it's not that you have to have different abilities as the person you are. It's you need to be someone else with different abilities talking to that same person, and you're kind of finding the magic pairings.
So how much, what kind of actions are you performing in this game? Is this a mostly kind of like social simulator where you're mostly talking to people, or are you out there, solving Resident Evil type puzzles?
In my mind, I think it could be a little bit of both. If you have a mechanic where the social leads to gaining an important insight or a particular item, or even convincing the other person to help you and be a companion. Maybe it takes, 2 people or 3 people sitting on a switch to activate something.
Okay.
If it's Groundhog Day, you can convince Ned Ryerson, right? Just, Phil?
He'd be pretty easy.
Phil Connors, is that you?
What other value, one of the things when you are inhabiting a video game character, they obviously aren't talking to themselves about themselves. That would be a crazy behavior. So like,
right.
What can you really learn about somebody by being in their shoes in a video game?
That's a good question. I think to me, it's maybe a little bit more like if I end a loop, let's say it is this transfer to person near you. If I end a loop near somebody's family member, maybe during that next loop when I am that family member, I can talk to them about, or they approach me even about an argument they were having with me, or a secret about the, lineage of the family or something like that, where that sort of insight is gained. And when you're the next person, you're like, okay, this is the type of game where I imagine, you might have a notepad sitting by you on the couch as you're kind of jotting everything down. Okay, this person's related to this person, and like maybe you're uncovering a vast conspiracy or something.
Yeah, so it's kind of like her story. You're kind of watching a presupposed series of events play out, but you have that kind of like 3D control. You can walk through the town as it's all happening, and people react to you differently. People interact with you based on, who you don't know.
Yeah, and then when you encounter someone who seems shady or who is withholding information from you, you know that, like, you don't have the ability to convince anyone, right? There's all these games where you, like, add to your intelligence and then you can kind of outsmart someone. Well, no, this is, now you have to position yourself to become, on the next go through, someone that person trusts. And then it almost feels like a Stephen King novel at that point.
What is the tie into Stephen King?
I'm just thinking about, like, it just sounds like people being possessed by an entity who is, able to hop between people and gain people's trust. Eventually it would end in, like, somebody being murdered or something like that.
Okay.
In a Stephen King, but it's Stephen King like.
Okay. I feel like we're getting this pretty well figured out. And of course, just like in Hitman, there are some people who are allowed to go to certain locations and not others, people who have the badge to get into the workplace, people who, can go into, I mean, even the differently gendered restrooms. I don't know if there's clues in there, but, all these different locations that some people are kind of prohibited from visiting.
Yeah, that's interesting, right? Like, you, the civilian, can't, like, go behind, you can't get to the kitchen in a diner, right? Mm-hmm. But, like, if you could become one of the wait staff, then you would have access to that kitchen. So it's like every new person that you possess has almost like key card like gated access to certain places in the game. And so you find yourself spending entire threads like, I'm going to be everybody in this restaurant just so I can figure out like where they're all coming from. And then like you get to the hardware store and you're like, I need to become the manager. Then the manager can get in contact with the shipping driver and he can get to the other side of town, all that sort of crazy stuff.
Maybe you can't directly control their movement. Maybe you can only direct like, you can just look around as they follow their path. You can talk to people, you can make dialogue choices or things like that. And it's all a little bit more like one step removed. But because oftentimes, there would be events to take place are kind of reliant upon multiple people being in the right place at the right time. But anyways, that's all the time we have on that one. Let's close it down and let's come up with a name.
All right, this might be stupid, but how about being humans?
Being humans, kind of like human beings, but backwards. Yeah. And it kind of loops, you can, just like in the Stanley Parable, you can kind of have those words back to back across the entire bottom of the loading screen.
Being human, beings human. Yeah.
Okay.
There's something to that.
Yeah, I like that. Being human. Right then. That was submitted by Robert Lee, who sent that into our website at playwrightcast.com/pitch. You can choose to submit a pitch of your own by going there or by emailing us playwrightcast@gmail.com or tweeting us at playwrightcast.
Special thank you to PROTODOME for the use of our theme song, Hello World, off the album Blue Noise. And hey, this holiday season, go spend some time at caneandrinse.com listening to great shows like the Cane and Rinse podcast with all the end of the year episodes on their way. And of course, the Sausage Factory, interviews with game developers, and Sound of Play, a video game podcast that sounds really, really good.
And to take us out of the show today, Q, do you want to give us a miniature pitch?
Sure. This one is ripped directly from the headlines of my life. A job simulator-like game where you have to prepare Thanksgiving dinner in a very, very small kitchen.
All right. We'll see you next week, everyone.
Bye.